Sorry, Bruce, I forgot.
That's all right. Um, so that's going on, and of course, I don't know how that's going to affect us, but depending on what they do, the city kind of automatically accepts it as that's the rules. Um, there's a series of legislations concerning e-bikes. But the most recent one is House Bill 4103, which passed this year. And it brought Oregon in line with national standards that adopted a three-class system. Class one, which includes e-bikes, can go up to 20 miles an hour with only pedal assist and battery power. Class two, which uh, can go up to 20 miles per hour with a throttle. And class three is electric assist, they can go up to 28 miles per hour. And I know the state parks and rec is looking very seriously at that. An interesting part of that the law was the act, it created an offense for unsafe e-bike riding. If a person violates the law, the person could be fined up to $100, which I'll come back to again. I also looked at other jurisdictions like Eugene. Eugene has several paths, but on the two major ones, they do allow e-bikes, but class one and class two, not three. There's other paths which they do not allow e-bikes on, but I think it's because the trails are probably more narrow, but I don't know that for a fact. Sun River has an ordinance where the pathway uses maximum speed is 15, and class one assist bikes are allowed. Throttle to control classes 2 and 3 are not. Segways, hoverboards, and scooters are prohibited. Sherwood is interesting. And in fact, I thought it was better researched of the three. And it states e-bikes are not considered motor vehicles, which they're not, but it actually considered a bicycle under Oregon code, except for class three. And they just looked at, they didn't go any further than that in their jurisdictions. But they do realize that it's an issue. All right, so then I start trying to write. So let me get to my notes where I can do that. Any questions so far as I fumble around with my iPad here?
I forwarded the email to you guys so you can be reviewing it also at home and otherwise.
Which email is that?
Your email you sent me.
Which one? I've got a couple.
Well, it was following your presentation right now.
Okay, but it's not what we talked about the last,
No.
right?
No.
Okay, because I don't want that out yet.
I have a question, and you may not know the answer to this, but you were saying that reckless driving e-bikes could be up to fine of $100 or something, and some of the cities have ordinances that prohibit one type or another. But do you have any idea on number of enforcement tickets issued or anything like that? Is that anywhere out there?
No idea, or how it would be enforced. But
I hesitate to have a rule that's not gonna be enforced, just because why have it, you know?
Well,
Which-
sometimes there's a reason, just to cover city liability and things like that.
Maybe, yeah.
So,
well, you know what? There's a lot of speed limits that are not very well enforced either. So our stop signs, I wish things were better enforced that way. But anyway, let me go on. This is what I've come up with, and this is a draft, and I haven't talked to Jerry Nelzine about this, and that's where I'm at right now. So let me just read it. And this is going to get handed off to a lawyer who's going to legalize it and rewrite it much better than I have it right now. And some of it I have just I've injected some thoughts into it. So let me start reading. the city of Canby enacts the following ordinance governing the Canby Logging Road multi-use path to be used alongside Oregon Parks regulations per Canby Ordinance 914. The Canby Logging Road multi-use path ordinance. 1, speed limit 15 miles an hour. And as I read this, if somebody has an objection or a concern as I read this segment, let's stop and talk about it. The second point, Oregon House Bill 4103 allows for a person to be fined $100 for unsafe e-bike riding. The offense of an unsafe electric assisted bicycle riding is a Class E traffic violation. Repeat offender, and this is what I've added into this in the ordinance. Repeat offenders may be banned from the Canby Logging Road multi-use path. Now, I think the Parks and Rec can ban people from parks for infractions. That I don't know, but it's just putting a little more meat to it. And if we had a sign saying unsafe bike riding can result in a fine or banning of the person from the trail, that's maybe gets somebody's attention, even though it's not enforced. Okay, I want to stop there. Any concern on that before I go on?
Guys,
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I know that what I've read is about enforcement is in national parks, they had, apparently, it's each park decides on its own. And then the park rangers have to enforce it. In some places, apparently, they've been relatively strict, and others, they haven't, and others, they've dropped the ban altogether.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a back and forth, you know. Initially, a lot of them banned them everywhere. And then under pressure, they've rescinded the bans. And so it's kind of a mishmash all over the country.
I would imagine
So-
that the level of strictness comes from how much of an issue there ends up being.
Right, it could depend on how, you know, if you get to a park like Yellowstone or something where it's just mass numbers of people, it's any kind of bike is, or any kind of vehicle on a pedestrian path is, it can be a problem.
and my thought is too, is that as it becomes more prevalent, and this is an evolving situation that's gonna be evolving through the years, and how we design our park spaces and multi-use paths, widths and amounts and such. But I think especially the repeat offender thing, those are the offenders we need to really take care of. You know, it's the ones who keep becoming a threat to people's safety. I think that's quite well written, and the city attorney will be able to. And also, didn't they talk about or that
Yes,
even parks,
right, the parks,
Public Works?
yeah, let me just jump in, Mindy.
Great.
Yes, Jerry Nelson says the city maintenance department can write tickets and cite people.
Yeah. it's-
So there is you know, whether they do it or not, I don't know, but they could.
Yeah.
All right, so I've covered the speed limit and I've covered the
You cite a child.
fine.
Identification.
Well, they can go get the parents or whatever. I mean, you can arrest a child and the parents come in, but if it's a bad enough case, I don't know if they would do it unless it's that
Well,
crazy.
actually, Bill 4103, that's covered where the parents are held liable.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But let me go on now. So we covered the fine and we covered the speed limit. Allowed are classes 1 and classes 2 e-bikes. The minimum age for a bike rider is 16 for class 2, but but under 16 may ride class 1, and that's according to the state law. I've got class 3 e-bikes and electric bicycles and cycles. Let me just read this again. Class 3 e-bikes and electric bikes / cycles with motors exceeding 1,000 watts are prohibited. We had a 50th anniversary the other day within the family, and one of my nephew's sons came up to me and showed me an e-bike he was interested in. It was a dirt bike. It had a 6,000 watt motor. And holy, could that ever tear around? So that prompted me for not just listing the size of the listing the wattage of the motor. Okay, so we got class 1 and 2, okay, class 3, not okay. And I'm kind of anticipating that's maybe what the state may do, but I don't know that. Okay, this next point. This ordinance allows persons with disabilities to operate a motorized wheelchair. Okay, we don't want to knock out people with disabilities because of it. I have segways, hoverboards, and scooters are allowable. I believe the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit should cover inappropriate behavior and can go unmentioned. And I'm considering deleting the whole paragraph. The next paragraph, motor vehicles, motorcycles, cars, trucks are prohibited with the exclusion of Canby Public Works, police, fire vehicles, and ambulance. The Canby Logging Road multi-use path is also an emergency access road to be used by the city of Canby. The Canby Public Works and the Canby Police shall collaborate on safety issues. The Canby Public Works may post signs to educate and enforce this ordinance. So that's what I've got written and what I would float out as an ordinance. I got just a little bit of work, wordsmithing to do on it. And I want to know what Jerry thinks of this. And Parks and Rec will want it. But how about this group? What are your thoughts now?
I think it is something good for Canby to have, something like that people can refer to, and for legal reasons. I think for practical reasons, I don't foresee the enforcement unless there ends up being a big problem. So if all of a sudden there's this influx of people going 30 miles an hour on their e-bikes and running over little dogs and stuff like that, then it seems like we have it to have it, but not necessarily something where it's going to be constantly policed. And I don't know. So a lot of people, I can see some people violating it and not getting in trouble, but at least it's there. So if it becomes an issue, it can be referred to, I guess.
And again, I like the repeat offender thing because, if they do end up with a camera in certain areas and it's always the same bad actors and they have, I actually think the city should consider some
Well,
cameras along the trail.
Or a
just-
It
radar.
looks to me like it's just I don't see it riding it, relatively frequently, at least portions of it. I don't see that there's any problem now, but it has the framework. Should it become super crowded on the bike path, and then you have a basis to work from. So I think it's fine. I think what you've written makes sense, and the speed limit we've all agreed is the best way to approach it rather than just dealing with bans.
The only experience I've had on the logging road,
What's that?
the only experience I've had on the logging road that results in possible bad things happening would be e-bikes. All the others, I haven't noticed any.
You've seen excessive e-bike speed on the logging road?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't. I mean, well, unless you saw me, I guess, you know.
I've seen excessive bicycle, non-e-bike speeds, but
Yeah, I've seen
not
regular,
e-bikes.
I remember we used to ride that site, you know, that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, on my e-bike, I was quite a ways back, you know, because
People
I
would
was
just go
going
bombing
like,
down that hill.
I was going like 14 miles an hour or something, and some of the better shaped riders were going much faster than, and then especially going down hills, they went faster than I went. So and I've, you know, seen other bicyclists there who are going faster than 15, and I haven't, but I haven't encountered, I guess maybe you're on it a lot more than I am. I haven't encountered any bad e-bike riders. The biggest problem I see on it
It was
is
the 4th
just
of July.
4 people walking side, you know, across the whole path. You know, that's just something you have
It was the
to,
4th of July after the fireworks.
Oh,
so one day a year.
but I think it's well-written so far as, you know, and they'll make their changes, but should we if anyone wants to make any comments for changes or edits in particular, is this something we want to
Well,
go ahead and recommend as a group here
Well, I think,
he's got his,
to Jerry
he's got
and
his
the city?
directive from the Parks Committee, right?
Yes,
Yes.
but we also have, Parks doesn't have that much to do with it. We, as a body, are working with Public Works and Jerry Nelzine to make this recommendation and help shape it. Is that correct, Bruce?
Yes. In fact, Jerry has asked, why don't we just take it through Bike and Ped? And bypass Parks and Rec. I said, no, it should come from both committees because that would be undermining the spirit of cooperation between the two committees.
Okay,
So I think what we can say is we're prepared to go forward with this. Do you want to sign it with us? I
Yeah.
think that should be our position.
I would endorse it. I don't have any objections.
yeah. I would endorse that too.
Okay.
We take a vote and make this official for our recommendation, at least as written so far.
Well, Derek, we have a illustrious politician on our board here, and he hasn't said too much. I would like to know what he thinks because we're going to be taking it to the council. What do you think it's going to be? How it's going to be accepted?
well, I've been thinking it right now, and I have different thoughts that are maybe not coherent, but I think the main issue that we have is, you know, safety. And so what we want to prohibit, even though we use different words for it, is reckless driving with any kind of bike. And that's what we want to prohibit. And what we're trying to do is give law enforcement or park enforcement, or whatever you want to call them, tools to go after bad actors should they arise. I don't see enforcement, like you said, happening unless there's a big problem. But if there is a big problem, we may not want to wait to go through the process of getting the committee and rules and everything going before enforcement can take place. So I like the idea of putting in some, I think overall, the general rule should be no driving recklessly. And then the secondary rule, you could say, well, recklessly means past 15 or past 20, among other things, but you can go slower than that and still drive recklessly. And so I think in the end, that's what just like they have the general driving rule, you have to drive carefully no matter what, even if you're going below the speed limit, you still have to drive carefully on a car. And so those are my thoughts. I don't know how coherent they are. But I do like what we're doing. I think we could present that. I think the likelihood it's going to sit on the shelf until something happens, and then it'll be pulled off and used should the either traffic become too much or there becomes a few incidents. When the incidents happen, they're going to probably say, will put somebody up and watch it, the bike trail on weekends or whatever, and issue warnings or citations. That's kind of how it probably would play out in the future if it needed to be brought out. But until it's brought out, it's just going to be a sort of a tool that's in the tool shed, not used very much. But someday they're like, well, we got to do that. I'm a pedestrian, so I walk on the trail. I don't ride the bike. Someday I might get on the bike again. And I think it's doing okay, although every once in a while, somebody on a bike will come up behind you and pass, like, okay, where'd that come from? But most of the people are like, hey, on your left or whatever, and that's cool. And so I generally think everything's okay, but I can imagine if a whole lot of pedestrian traffic came on the logging road, you might end up having to even further restrict the speed of bikes if it was the point where you couldn't go fast without running over or hitting somebody, or you're constantly, playing dodgeball with the pedestrians. But I don't think we're at that point yet. And then I think we can deal with that later if that becomes an issue.
Dan, I think there's been more instances of problems than you realize on the logging road, at least from what I'm hearing from Jerry and from the Parks and Rec. And so I think they want to do something. In talking with Jerry and the fact that the police department made him pull off the sign that he had up, which was trying to help the city for liability reasons, I think the same thing with the speed limit sign. They may not support that. So you notice down in the body that the police are supposed to collaborate with with Public Works. And so this is where the council may be having to say to the police department, hey, you're going to go ahead and let them put up speed limit signs at least, And so I think there it needs to be a little bit of cooperation between the different silos in the city.
Yeah, and like I say, with the bikes issue, I'm conflicted because the one time in my life when I was on a bike all the time was when I lived in Europe. And at that point, bikes weren't allowed on sidewalks or pedestrian paths at all. You get cited if you drove your bike on the sidewalk, at least in the country I was living in. Here in Oregon, it's sort of more mixed. Bikes can go on the sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. But I think if we put the tools in place, we'll have the ability to go back and police it when it becomes an issue. Now, if it is already an issue, I think we can hear that. I'm walking on the bike on the logging trail. It makes me slightly, not really nervous, slightly nervous when somebody comes by really fast. Just because, especially when I was younger and my kids were younger, the kids do random things. They, you think you're in a safe spot on the logging trail with the kids and everything, but it can become not a safe spot because, even next to the street, the kids do random things, run into the street on the bike trail. I just, so those are my thoughts, but not into any kind of set rules. I think we can have that toolbox. We're building a toolbox to be used and to be given to the city and say, here's your toolbox, here's what you can do to address the issue. And the issue really is unsafe riding in all of its forms. So
as we're just an advisory committee, but we also,
I want to make sure the toolbox is appropriate. It's not excessive, it's not going to hit people unfairly, and that we can say to the city, which is what we'll have to say because of our city council people, we can't go and arrest people or just citing. They didn't let us have that kind of fun. But so the only thing we can do is say, hey, can you set up Saturday of enforcement or something? And it's mostly educational. The fines, if they ever occur, are going to be probably unfairly and unevenly distributed, but they'll be for the purpose of warning people, say, hey, we really mean it. It's kind of like.
And also it's in the end for liability, if there is an accident, to determine who was in the wrong and who's
and that's an issue that happens.
And the city needs to have their liability covered, that they have established rules and that they have to be posted and
that's the issue as well. I don't know where it went anywhere, but one of these, the city got sued well, it named in a lawsuit, which is because the train hit somebody who was crossing the street, not crossing the tracks, when all the lights were down, when the gate was down, when there was a train honking at him, and he crossed anyway, and the reason why was because he thought that, well, we don't know what he thought because he's gone, but I assume he thought that because one track had a train that wasn't moving, that was what the lights were for and going through. And that's what the lawsuit kind of said, and something to the effect that we didn't prevent him from crossing, we didn't give him sufficient warning. Now, whether it's what's sufficient, what's not, that's debatable, and I don't know how far they'll get, but because usually the insurance company takes up the lawsuit and all that stuff. But the point is that you're right. We need to say that we've done all that we can to
Due
prevent
diligence.
the license, or prevent the incident. The incident will still happen, and then there will be a legal debate whether we did all that we could do. And because you could never do all you could do. I mean, in theory, you could have a guy standing every 5 feet,
Yeah.
and still,
What's appropriate, yeah.
but we have been sued in the past for not preventing people from crossing the railroad tracks and the one that happened just this a few months ago,
Yeah,
that happened the same thing. You had a railroad locomotive that was stopped, but clearly next to the crossing. And the guy obviously thought it was safe because that train wasn't moving, the guards were down for that train, but then look, behind them was another train,
yeah.
and that went splat.
Emma, I think you were gonna say something.
Yeah,
Mhm.
not so much to the points of the ordinance. I think they're all good ideas, but I think that something to consider is that this could be a really good opportunity with adoption of an ordinance to promote education. Hey, city, tell the kids at school so the parents know, and tell the community, through various avenues, hey, we've adopted these rules because we have seen issues. Be aware that, the city is taking notice and these are problems, and so we've adopted X, Y, and Z rules. It may not be as effective as enforcement, but it feels, better to then just one day start going and enforcing. Can we try and educate people and, use the education as maybe a mechanism to get more of a result than just,
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, once this is in place, making sure that it's promoted.
Yeah, how do we promote that and do advertise and educate once with that new information to the folks.
And the last sentence, the Canby Public Works may post signs to educate and enforce this ordinance.
Sure, that's good. Yeah, but I guess I'm thinking more of
Yeah,
if a teenager is riding and they are doing something that's in violation, they're not gonna read the sign and they're not gonna tell the parents. And so if your kid comes home with a $100 ticket as a parent, I think that would be shocking to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people think that that could happen.
Yeah.
In my experience, I would be surprised. So just, can we educate folks on this is now happening and this is now a possibility? It goes through the public process of to get council approval. That is in itself a public process, but maybe we can try and, spread the message a bit broader, and maybe that will have an impact
Yeah.
as well.
And have it
A
posted.
bike safety day
Yeah.
is probably best to do it in the spring or something,
Flyers
but
or, I don't know exactly what, but I think that it could be, I think it could push the intent of this even further and make it two-prong almost.
Bike safety day hosted at the Eco
Yeah,
Park, where there's a
yeah.
parking lot, and the logging trail goes through, and you can hand them the flyers as
And
they go by.
the
and
police-
Hand
15
out
miles.
little bells, the little
Yeah.
bells that.
Yeah.
that
I
say
know the
they're-
police-
Hand out little bells, yeah.
Police does that day where I think it's
Bike
usually-
rodeo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
in
gonna have to
early-
wait a while, but that kind of thing would be good to share the information there, and maybe maybe we ask them to
And
consider.
then I think it would be good also idea to maybe have somebody from the police department at one of our next meetings
Yeah.
to give their input. Like the chief or something. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
because the chief took down the other sign, so maybe he has an opinion on it.
well, I think how this will unfold is first you get the speed limit signs up. And then if it's a problem, you put up the sign about unsafe bike, e-bike riding. It could, you could be fined for it.
Well, why are you limiting it to unsafe e-bike riding?
Because that's what the law says.
We
Well,
could,
what about unsafe bicycle riding?
It's
What
not
about
mentioned.
unsafe hoverboard riding? Well,
Yeah,
that's unsafe scooter riding. It just pisses me off as an e-bike rider that
I know.
everywhere seems to be just, this
know.
is, oh boy, we've never had this as a discussion before, and now all of a sudden, we're gonna come down like a ton of bricks on e-bike riding, e-bike riders,
it
you
should
know?
be, it should be brought up to cover all bikes, not,
Yeah,
not
not
single out
just,
Well,
e-bikes.
yeah, or unsafe walk.
Well, if the city is writing the ordinance, it doesn't have to be just e-bikes. I'll change that.
I
Yeah.
think, I think
That's
bikes in
that's a
general,
good point.
because I've been damaged by bikes before. And a bike going 20 miles per hour is going to do a lot of damage to you if you get hit just as much as e-bike. Only thing with e-bikes is, I say they have the different classes, but if you got a certain amount of power in the motor and the battery, you get heavier, and the heavier it is, the more damage, of course, it does when it hits
Right.
something. So there may be a weight restriction or something that you throw in.
I think what we have before us is that we should direct Bruce to negotiate with Jerry Nelzine on this issue.
Yeah, well, he will, but we just want to
Authorize
get
him.
approval here on what we're,
No, you're helping me a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think this is a good point.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to think about how I'm gonna work it. I want to cite the law, which cites e-bikes, not regular bikes, but then I can, you know, the fact that city can write an ordinance to include all bikes, scooters, hoverboards, and whatever else.
Well, I move that
Difference
we-
be hit by a 15 mile per hour e-bike or hit 15 mile per hour regular bike.
I move that we have the Bike Pedestrian Committee empower Bruce to work with the Parks and Recreational Committee and Jerry Nelzine to develop a,
he's already empowered.
well, not by us. I thought that was the whole point of us making a motion.
No, what we want to do is approve what he's written up so that when he does go to them, they know that we are behind what has
Well,
been
okay, I'll
written.
change it to
Is that
the
okay?
committee endorses Bruce's work towards developing a policy
Mhm. Or the proposed,
or whatever. I
Policy.
don't know.
great.
So can we endorse it then?
Well, shouldn't you have something
Yeah,
in writing
I
that
mean,
you
we can
endorse?
endorse it this far, and then the city will do what they will with it and stuff. Is there a second?
Well, shouldn't you have like something written that you are actually endorsing?
Second.
What he just
We
read,
read it
right?
It's
Yeah.
what you
with
just read.
with the modification, I mean.
It should be incorporated in the minutes, whatever is
We'll
approved.
make it up.
We can attach, we could attach, Bruce, would you be comfortable sharing?
I can share it.
So we could attach it to the minutes?
Okay, I'll attach it as I wrote it here. I'm not gonna try to change that
Sure.
right now.
I
Or what
can
if-
say,
just
in
say
the
these-
minutes
these
that we
policies.
endorsed it as read by
Yeah, that's a good
Bruce.
idea.
And the written version will be presented.
Final version to be reviewed or something.
Yes, yeah.
Is that okay?
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
Right?
That was a good idea.
All in favor?
Did you get a second?
I did.
So quiet. Quiet.
All right. So if that wraps that part up, let's move on to,
The minutes we haven't done.
Oh, yeah, so we
Thank
waited for
you.
you for the minutes.
thank you. Please take a moment, review the minutes if you haven't already, and then I will take any edits and motions.
Under old business,
Yes.
county bike plan, the last sentence I find confusing. What's it supposed to say?
Oh, I probably left some words out. Well, Bruce said that all the bike plans are just for Milwaukee and Gladstone in the unincorporated areas of Milwaukee and Gladstone. It has nothing to do with us. Isn't that right, Bruce?
That's correct. Basically, it had everything to do with Milwaukee, let's see, Gladstone,
Or in the
and
Milwaukee and
around the
Gladstone
I-205
unincorporated
area.
areas.
It has nothing to do with
Put
us.
R in twice.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so just edit the last R.
Well, it should read, plans are in the Milwaukee, Gladstone unincorporated areas. So the R after Gladstone should be eliminated.
Did I send out that plan to, I don't think I did.
No,
Okay, that's on my to-do list for
You mean the
Sorry,
plan
it's
for
on the-
Milwaukee and Gladstone?
the county
I
bike
got it.
plan.
I got it.
Oh, you
I
did?
got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
oh,
I guess I did. I can send it to you
Sent it
again,
last
Cliff,
month,
if you
right
like.
after the meeting, I think.
Oh, yes, okay. I think I did that, so I was getting, forget.
Okay, is there a motion?
Well, I wrote it,
Is
so
that it?
somebody else had to make a motion.
approved
I'll
as
make-
amended.
Okay.
Second.
Second, all in favor? All right,
Uh,
great, thank you. And, yeah, some of the people who were at the parks thing that were, e-bike users, I had invited them to this meeting. I thought they might be here, but they're not. Anyhow, new business? Otherwise, we'll move on to, any updates from the county, Bruce?
The county did not have a bike, a meeting this month. They took the month off.
Great. All righty, thank you, Bruce. Staff and council update, anything pertinent to this committee?
Do you wanna go first? Yeah.
Nothing really. I mean, the e-bike issue has been brought up at city council, although no action was taken at the time. We are aware of that, trying to develop an issue on that. So just to let you know.
So in other words, they have a heads up that something's,
They had a heads up, and at the parks, Sip mentioned that there was an issue that was brought before the parks committee about that, and I've kind of given you my opinions on things, but we're kind of waiting for a proposal or something to come up that we can
For the ordinance.
further debate or dissect or whatever we want to do about it.
Great. Emma?
I just have a few things. I coordinated today, the newspaper listing for our vacancies is going out. It'll first be published a week from tomorrow, and I made the deadline the second week of November, and so it will get published in the paper for 4 weeks. So hopefully maybe that will get some attention, hoping the election results paper would be popular. That was like, okay, maybe that'll work. So that, and then, I heard, Jamie Economic Development is doing, what do they call that event where they're inviting people?
There's going to be something called the Canby, I don't know if I think the word exactly right, but I'm going from memory, but the Canby Citizens Academy. So what is going to happen is this, we're going to have, starting from January to June, they're going to pick 25 people who are going to register, no charge, but they're going to limit it to 25 people. They said if it's 26, they'd probably squeeze the extra one in, but if it's like 50, they'll want to cut it off, at that point. And then so each, once a week, and I think it's going to be on Thursdays, if I remember right.
I didn't catch the day.
They're going to start with a dinner and then spend 2 hours having departments of the city instruct the people, the citizens, on how their department works and how that the best interact and work with them as citizens. And then that'll last for 6 months. So they're going to go through all departments: police, fire, public works, finance, other kinds of things. So at the end, they'll get a certificate that says that you've graduated from the Canby Citizens Academy. It's anticipated this will be going on once a year for a while. And basically it's an opportunity I see two advantages of applying, because it's an opportunity for people to understand how the city works so they're not as frustrated. They know who to talk to and that sort of thing. The second advantage I see to it is it forces the department heads to be able to articulate clearly what they do to the public, which actually I found that whenever I present to other people on a subject, usually boring tax or accounting issues, it forces me to be more clear and to maybe even change the way I do things. Because now that I have to explain why I do things to other people, and sometimes you explain to them, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. So I think it's a very good opportunity for both the city and the citizens to.
So I can see future voters pamphlets say, people running saying, certificate, I have a certificate for from the Canby Citizens Academy, so they know
And
they're working.
I think another big thing of it is attracting more volunteerism to
Yeah.
committees,
Yeah.
to, just events of the city, and kind of, if you get a better understanding, is it less?
Somebody here would apply for it. It's going to be a time commitment. That's why they want you to register and sign up for it. It's the first time they're doing it. This was actually my idea when I first came on the council. It's a big thing I'm pushing for because I just see a lot of the problems with government in general is a sense of disenfranchisement where you deal with government but you don't know how, and it gets really frustrating, and sometimes this problem can be solved by just knowing who the right person to talk to.
And to that point, even, as we're looking to recruit, if you know somebody who's clearly interested in bike ped, but maybe is a little less, is intimidated by government or just a little less savvy, and that's kind of the buffer or the barrier to them, maybe this is.
Yeah.
Supposedly in November, they're going to put the application up, like for people to sign up.
So long term.
And they're going to see how many people sign up for it. But it's, the idea is to have about 25 people. She said, like I said, if it's 27 or 30, they might make it to 30. But if it's going to be more than that, they don't want it to be
So huge.
really huge, So that's how it's going to work. I'm really excited. It's the first time Cammy's doing this, so probably the first session there may be some bugs to work out. That's usually happens when there's a new program. But I'm excited to that step in the positive.
Who's cooking the dinners?
Cuts forth, probably.
Probably cuts work.
That could be important.
That is it good food or is it
Is
just?
one of the goals to develop leaders?
Yes, that's the main goal, is to develop leaders and people in the community, that other community members will know that they can say, hey, I'm really frustrated with the city for this. How do I get a hold of it? And how do I get that taken care of? And I think right now it's a lot of, some people know how to do it and some people don't. And those who know how to interact with the city are, I guess you could call them
Movers and shakers.
well, they're the privileged. Another thing, they're privileged to know how to do it. And it's not so much a economic barrier; it's a knowledge barrier. And just as an example, I had a really frustrating problem with the Oregon Department of Revenue. They came up on Friday, and they weren't responsive. And I knew to call the senator, who then called somebody, and I got a phone call back today on it. But it's not. But most people don't think about that. They just get really frustrated, really mad. And then people who are frustrated, really mad, do things sometimes that are not as appropriate as people who say, well, I know how to get my issue resolved.
And also, I think in the end, especially with, people posting things and stuff, if you have a larger base that knows the ins and outs of how to get things done, rather than people just raging, you can say, why don't you contact so-and-so?
And I have no idea.
Or this is in the works, so.
I don't have no idea how
Yeah.
it happened, but a few months ago, somebody painted their own crosswalk on 4th Street. Just,
That's bad.
and then the city came in and erased it after it was up for a day or so. And it wasn't done right or code or anything like that. And that was just really, that person probably was really frustrated, said, I got a bucket of paint.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
do
it
it.
could have just been a graffiti artist.
Oh, it was a crosswalk. It was painted like a crosswalk. Went through it. It wasn't like an artistic thing. Because I remember I drove over and said, that's an illegal crosswalk. And somebody else reported it and they fixed it. But I remember also when I used to live on 4th and Elm, we had thought there was a serious problem with kids going to school there. And we contacted the traffic safety committee and we said, I think we need a crosswalk there. And they did it. They painted it right there. They did it right according to code. And so one way is the wrong way and one way is the right way. But if you know the right way, she might have been able, whoever did it might have been able to get a crosswalk put in there, Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to also acknowledge that have you all seen the 2 sidewalks? We got them
No, I
both
was
at
gonna, that was my
15th and
next thing. I haven't
17th.
been over there yet. We got both of them?
Yes.
Oh, nice. I'll have to go take pictures.
Yes.
What?
On Redwood.
Crosswalks at 15th and 17th on Redwood.
That's exciting.
And they're fabulous.
When did you see them?
Oh, gosh,
Has it been a
probably
month or so?
on late August? No, not that long
They
ago.
weren't there in September,
No, they
our
were,
last meeting.
yeah,
So like a month.
so maybe
Nice.
2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Maybe it was 2 weeks ago.
So we got 2 new crosswalks. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yes. So anything else?
No, that was gonna be my next thing that I
Okay,
hadn't,
sorry.
I hadn't drove over there yet, so I
Spoiler.
wasn't sure. I was gonna see if Cliff knew.
All righty. Any other hot spots or concerns of late anyone want to bring up?
Nope.
Mindy?
Otherwise,
Mindy,
yes.
I have, it's not a hot spot, it's a bright spot. And that is, if you've been on the logging road, you may have noticed a bit of art being done on it. There is a very large dump that one of the city residents went to the Parks and Rec, got permission, and had some carvings done. It was the guy that does it on the Tavern in 99E. He was hired to do that.
Oh,
And so if you hadn't seen it, well, that's how it came
where is
about.
it on? I saw the post about it, but where is it on the trail?
It's about halfway down from Territorial to the end of the logging road on the north end by
Okay,
the river, by halfway.
gotta look for it.
There's a really beautiful bench carved, not on the logging road, but kind of along where the river is, where the frisbee course is. And if you take the trail, if you take the bark chipped trail kind of along the river, there's this gorgeous bench that is like wooden carved. It's so pretty. And
Wow.
I think it's dedicated to a kid who had died or something. It's a memorial kind of thing. But it's very artistic as well, and it overlooks the river too.
Thank you for the bright spots. Otherwise, outreach, anything or
No, I
thoughts for
noticed
the-
somebody posted, I think, about the carvings on the, right? On
Maybe
the,
that's where I saw it.
was that you?
was-
or-
No, it wasn't.
That was me.
Oh, good job, Bruce. Because I saw a lot of people commented on that, and you know what? I went on a run a couple weeks ago, which is where I saw that bench. I ran down the logging road just from the eco park, just a short stretch on the logging road, and then cut off to go take the trail along the river. And these women were there, and they stopped me. They started talking to me. I took out my earphone, and they asked me where the wood carvings are, because they had seen a posting about the wood carvings, and I'm like, I don't know.
Now you can run back and tell them.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, in Europe, on the bike ride, where they had along the trees, the little miniature houses, it looks like elves and things and they're made at the
Like the
base of
gnomes.
trees, like little house fronts or different things. And oh my gosh,
Is that like the little gnome things, like the
It
little
looks-
red-hatted critter, little.
I don't know that they had gnomes there at this particular thing, but that's what it looks like should live
Yeah.
there, are
Okay.
little forest
Was this in
gnomes.
Scandinavia?
It was in either Belgium or the Netherlands.
Oh, cool.
Do you remember
Well,
where that was?
Those are
Do you
the two
guys
countries
remember?
you rode through, so probably wasn't one of them.
One of them.
I actually don't remember. I remember
Yeah.
on the Amalfi Coast, we were walking along the road and here's all these little houses and stuff and back in,
Yeah.
all coast. So it must be, kind of more common thing there to make little.
Yeah, I
Little
would love
miniature.
that. It would be,
I just remember the big statue of the nude woman that you posed in front of.
oh, yeah.
She kept her clothes on though.
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
It is
Yes,
Europe.
Let's clarify. Yeah, okay. Otherwise, recruitment we covered, and next meeting is November 12th, and our next minute taker will be.
Who comes
I
after
think-
me?
Russ did the last meeting.
I did the last one.
So Cliff, I believe you're next.
Is that right?
And this is,
Yeah, because it's
There's
just
only
the
three of
three
you
of
taking
us, and if
notes.
Russ did
And
the
Bruce,
last one.
And Bruce.
Oh, Bruce isn't
he doesn't
doing
take
the minutes.
He won't be at the, he won't be at the next meeting?
No, he doesn't do minutes.
He doesn't?
because he goes to a bunch of other meetings for us.
He's special.
We gotta get the AI notes things going, so you guys don't have to take it.
Oh, are there AI notes
Apparently,
coming?
I've been meaning to try it, but I haven't.
Oh,
That's can you
But
just
apparently
turn
it
on your phone,
exists.
record the meeting and.
That's true, but that's what this is
That means more people go to other meetings for me.
for.
all right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Bruce, for all your hard work too. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, yeah.
To our minute takers, all of you. Thank you. And we'll see you next November 12th. Should we
Adjourn?
adjourn? Second? All in favor? Great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bruce.
Bye, good night.
Good night.
Happy birthday to Caitlin.
Okay, she had a good time.